Anti-Semitism movement. My name is Shira Granot. I'm Director of Community Engagement, and I'm proud to launch our One Voice, One Fight movement with this event. On a personal note, I grew up in Germany in a Catholic school with Christian and Muslim friends while I was the only Jewish girl in the school. We grew up on shared values of religious freedom, respect, and harmony, so I know that this is possible. I understand the importance of this unity. Today, leaders, influencers, and advocates from Christian, Muslim, Hindu, and other non-Jewish communities who are boldly standing against the rising tide of anti-Semitism globally. Now, anti-Semitism is not just a Jewish problem, it's a human problem. With over 60% of Jews in the US reporting first-hand experiences of anti-Semitism, and more than 60% of religious hate crimes targeting Jews, this gathering is a call to action for all people of conscience. History has taught us that hate directed towards one group, if unchecked, eventually threatens all. Just as non-Jewish allies, Christians, Muslims, and others stood alongside Jewish communities during the darkest moments of the Holocaust, we must again rise to confront the dangers of hate in our time. But this event is more about than discussing the problem. It's about showcasing hopeful examples of solidarity and action. Throughout our program, you will hear from an inspiring lineup of leaders from across the globe. Each of these voices represents a different perspective, united by the belief that combating anti-Semitism requires courage, unity, and moral clarity. I want to invite Sasha Reutemann, Executive Director of the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, for his opening words. Sasha, welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is Sasha Reutemann from Tel Aviv, Israel. This event for us at the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement is important. And I will tell you why it's so important for us. Because since October 7, we have seen the worst of human beings. On October 7 itself. But then what happened after? With the demonstration justifying a genocide against the Jewish people, justifying attacking Jews, justifying the raping, the kidnapping, justifying the attack of Hamas. And this was very painful for us. I don't know if you can imagine and be a Jew for a minute. You've been attacked on October 7. You received support on October 8 and maybe the 9 from the international community. And on October 10, what happened after? Massive demonstration across the world attacking Israel, attacking the Jewish people, Jewish students under constant harassment, synagogue vandalized, Jewish community center attacked. People are afraid. The Jewish community is afraid to live in this world. And that's not something we should accept. Now, what we think as a Jewish people today, we think that it's not too late. We think that we can fix it. And what we look at the history, because the history is repeating itself. We have always been the first, and then the rest is coming after us. So when Jews are attacked, the obligation of the world is to understand that we have a new wave of a new virus coming to our world. And today we have this virus spreading out like fire across the world. And the only way to beat it is to build relationships, is to be united against a virus that we don't let spread across the universe. And today it's a call to action for people to join us, the Jewish people, to make sure that we don't repeat the mistake of the history. I think that's one thing that the world needs to know. Jews have learned from the history. They will not wait in silence like we did in the past. We will leave the countries that are not protecting us because we know what's going to happen after if we are not protected. We know exactly what will happen to Europe, United States, and other places if they don't react today to extremism behaviors in their own countries. We're not going to be the victims of hatred another time. 80 years ago, we saw exactly what happened to us. And we've learned that we're going to first fight to not let it appear in every place in our society. But in case it's happening, we're going to leave and let you fight your battles. So today it's a call for us to join forces and to fight together before it's too late. And I think that in my life, I learned something very important about your time, where you invest your time. And you can invest your time in two things: to hate or to fight hatred. We decide to invest our time to fight hatred, to build a better world, to make sure that every minute of our time serves as building a relationship with someone, that every minute serves to a bigger purpose that we have in this world, which is making it better. Now you need to decide where your time goes: hatred or build a better world. Inviting everyone around the world to invest your time, your energy in building a better place for everyone around the world. Thank you everyone for watching us today, and I'm looking forward for this event.
Thank you, Sasha. Now, I'm very happy to welcome Troy Miller, President and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters. Troy, so happy to have you with us.
Hi, I'm Troy Miller, President and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters Association. We have had 80 years of partnership, standing arm in arm, locked with our Jewish brothers and sisters and friends to fight anti-Semitism across the U.S. and around the world. NRB has consistently produced resolutions by our board of directors each year to address this issue, not only with our membership, but also with those who are in political power, the mainstream media, and corporate America across this country. We will continue to stand with our Jewish friends until anti-Semitism has been wiped out around this country and around the world. This year, we're going to concentrate on working on college campuses and with college ministries to fight this epidemic that has grown in the U.S. I want to say something to our Jewish friends. We are here with you. We will not abandon you, and we will support you until we have wiped this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Troy, for these encouraging words. Next, I am very happy to invite Luay Ahmed to share his really, truly incredible story. Luay, journalist and content creator from Yemen, currently living in Tel Aviv. Please, welcome.
Hello, Cam. This is Luay Ahmed. I am a journalist and content creator from Yemen. I am recording this to you today on the 20th of November, and the 20th of November for me is a very special day because it has been exactly 1 year since I visited Israel for the very first time. And now, 1 year later, I have moved to Israel. It's a very long story, and I honestly don't even know where to begin. So I was born and raised in Yemen, Sana'a, and for 20 years I learned to hate Jewish people. I learned to hate freedom. In schools and mosques I was taught the most extreme version of Islam, which is Islamism. And in that I learned to exclude everything and anything that did not fall in line with Islam and what my imams were telling me. And one of those things were the Jewish people. Religiously, I learned that the Jewish people were evil, that they tried to kill Prophet Muhammad, that they were turned into apes by Allah because they were so conniving and wanted to destroy Islam. So I grew up with all this hatred towards Jewish people. And in school, we used to burn the Israeli flag, and we used to, in the school assembly, we used to chant against Israel. And in mosques, I learned to repeat after my imam that may God kill the Jews, may God kill the Zionists. And the justification behind all of this was the Jewish people being evil, rude, mean, and controlling the world. I used to even watch documentaries with my friends, with my Arab friends. One documentary was The Arrivals, which tries to make it seem like every problem in the world, the pharmaceutical industry, Hollywood, the economic system, the banking system, every single thing in the world is controlled and driven by and controlled by the Jews. And that is why the world is so messed up today. And I believed all of these things. So when I turned 20, I moved to Sweden. I fled to Sweden as a refugee, as a homosexual refugee. And the scary thing, or the sad part, is that in the same schools, in the same mosques, and in the same places, I learned that I, as a homosexual, should also be killed. And I questioned that. I questioned it. Like, why would God, why would Islam want to kill me as a gay person? That did not make any sense to me. But when it came to the Jews, when it came to Israel, I completely bought into hatred against the Jewish people. But I could not reflect on the same hatred that was taught towards me. I did not do anything wrong as a gay person. I only existed, and that was a problem. And I could not understand that it was the same thing with the Israelis and Jews. Them just existing was a problem for radical Islam and Islamists. So when October 7 happened and I saw the footages, and I had already met Jews and Israelis in Sweden and became friends with a few Jews and Israelis, when October 7 happened, I was not able to dehumanize Israelis and Israel and say they deserved it, because now I know Israelis, I know Jews, I know they're incredible people, I know they're human beings. That is the most messed up part, is that I started saying, wait, I know that Jews are human beings now, which is so completely insane that I lived my entire life not believing that Jewish people are human beings. It's absolutely insane to me that my mosques and schools were able to brainwash me into believing that. And when October 7 happened, and I saw all the footages and I saw my family and friends celebrating it, it turned something in my brain. It changed my whole perspective on the deep hatred and anti-Semitic worldview that we have, that we blame everything on the Jews, and the Jews control everything, and the creation of Israel is the destruction of the Middle East. All of these things, I started to view them, it's kind of like when I realized I was gay, I was like, wait, there's something wrong, intrinsically wrong with the teachings about the Quran and Islam and all of that. And when October 7 happened and I saw the justifications that were happening in front of me, something also clicked, and I realized, wait, the Jews are exactly like me. They want to kill the Jews. They want to genocide the Jews just for being Jewish, just like they want to kill me just for being gay. And on the 20th of November 2023, I decided to visit Israel. And here I am. I moved to Israel. That's how much I fell in love with the country. I made so many friends. I love everything about, not everything, but I love most things about the culture. I feel more, as an Arab Muslim, I feel more home here than I ever felt like I was at home in Sweden or in Austria or even in Yemen. Because in Yemen, they wanted to kill me for being gay. They did not accept me for being a free thinker. So that's why I eventually decided to move to Israel and come here and be myself here and enjoy the culture and get to know more Jews and get to become friends with more Jewish people and Israelis. And I also found out that the 4 or 5 Jews and Israelis that I met were in Sweden are a good representation of Israel, in the fact that they're all so funny and kind and intelligent and warm and loving and accepting. And I have not had a single bad interaction with an Israeli or a Jew in Israel until now. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for all the hatred and IDF soldiers just punching me and stuff, but it's not happening. And it's also crazy to me that I came here throughout the most traumatic time, which was after October 7, and I still find the country to be resilient and strong and beautiful and endearing. And I have just completely fell in love with Israel and the Jewish community in the past year.
Thank you, Luai. We're so happy to have you here. All the way back to the United States, Dr. Susan Michael, USA Director of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I'm Dr. Susan Michael, the President of the United States branch of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. And it is our honor and our privilege to be a partner with CAM in this global work of monitoring and combating anti-Semitism. Our organization is headquartered in Jerusalem, where we were founded in 1980. We function as a representative body for Christians all around the world, providing a connection for them with Israel. We, from day one, our mission statement has been out of Isaiah 40, verse 1, which says, comfort ye, my people, says the Lord. And we were very aware that after some 2,000 years of really bad relations between Jews and Christians, that we were part of starting of a whole new season, a whole new relationship based on mutual respect. And so our task has been to demonstrate Christian support for Israel in very practical ways, which means that we have been there doing humanitarian aid. We sponsor the largest home for Holocaust survivors in Israel. We have been placing well over 200, probably 250 bomb shelters by now across southern Israel and now in the northern part of Israel. Just practical ways of demonstrating Christian support for Israel. Because we are the largest Christian Zionist organization in the world, we reach into over 170 countries, and we have some form of representation or even a branch office in over 90 countries of the world. We have had tremendous influence in building educational programs for the local Christian community in our nation. For me, that means here in the United States. But third on our list of priorities is to take a stand in the public square for Israel when needed. And I'm shocked to say that even here in the United States, that public stand is more and more, not just in support of Israel, but against rising anti-Semitism. You know, anti-Semitism is based on a false narrative of lies and hatred spread about the Jewish people and about the state of Israel. As Christians, we are very committed to the truth. We believe the Bible is truth, but also historical fact. We need to arm our community with the facts to be able to articulate a better defense of Israel. And so our organization is committed to that, to educating the Christians around the world with the truth about Israel, the truth about the Jewish people, and mobilizing the Christian community to stand on that truth. We cannot allow anti-Semitism to continue to rise. It has had wreaked havoc over the last year since October the 7th, and we need to rise up against it. Anti-Semitism lives in the far radical left and in the far radical right. Our community is in the mainstream. We are in the middle. And so we need to arm that community to push back against the left and against the right, and to be able to articulate a defense of Israel and the Jewish people. This is what we're committed to, what we are doing, and what we're going to be doing even more in 2025. So we link arms with all you organizations around the world standing against this evil and standing in support of Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so much for your work and dedication. And now, all the way to New Zealand, I want to welcome Dr. Cherie Trotter, the co-director of the Indigenous Coalition for Israel and co-founder of the Holocaust and Anti-Semitism Foundation, New Zealand. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou and shalom. I'm speaking to you from the far ends of the earth in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm honoured to be joining the Combat Anti-Semitism movement today as one voice among many coming together to stand against anti-Semitism. I'm Dr. Cherie Trotter, the co-director of the Indigenous Embassy of Jerusalem. I'm an Indigenous person from Aotearoa, New Zealand, a Māori from the Te Arawa tribe. In February 2024, my co-director, Honourable Alfred Ngaro, and I launched the Indigenous Embassy Jerusalem at the Friends of Zion Museum in Jerusalem. This was a project spearheaded by former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum. The Indigenous Embassy Jerusalem was officially announced as the 5th embassy in Jerusalem and the 100th embassy in Israel. We had a remarkable opening event where many of the Indigenous of the nations came to express solidarity with Israel in a time of war. The Indigenous Embassy Jerusalem provides Indigenous peoples of the nations a platform to collectively stand with Israel and to fight anti-Semitism. It gives us a mechanism to work within our nations to strengthen our Indigenous networks and build the relationships between the Jewish and Indigenous peoples and to combat the lies that lead to Jew hatred. We recognise that one of the most prevalent forms of anti-Semitism today is anti-Zionism, that it has exploded since the 7th of October 2023. Israelis were portrayed as foreign white colonisers who had dispossessed the so-called indigenous Palestinians. Hamas barbarism was called justified resistance against, quote, 70 years of colonialist oppression, end quote. We recognise that this false narrative, which has taken hold in the public imagination of Western nations, had its birth within Western academia and from there has taken hold in mainstream media, politics, social media and general culture. For this reason, one of the goals of the Indigenous Embassy of Jerusalem is to confront this problem within academia. We've just held an academic symposium in Jerusalem where we gathered some of the world's top academics and scholars to dismantle the lies, set out the true history, and build a body of material to confront these false narratives. One of our goals is to fight back by holding academic events throughout the world. The fact is, Jews are the indigenous people of the land of Israel. Jews have more than 3,000 years of connection to the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. It was there that the Jewish people developed their unique culture and religious practices. They clearly fulfill the criteria of indigenous peoples, even by the UN's own definitions. Further, many of our indigenous peoples identify strongly with the suffering of the Jewish people throughout history, the discrimination, persecution, dispossession, expulsion from lands, and murder. After the dreadful events of the Holocaust, the Jewish nation was reborn. We as Indigenous people see Israel as an inspiration. We are encouraged by the revitalization of the Hebrew language and see Israel as a model of self-determination. Israel is a light to the nations, and we are proud to stand with Israel and affirm her indigenous status in her ancestral homeland.
Dr. Cherie, thank you for your words and support. A special guest coming up, I want to welcome Sheikh Musa Drame, President of Muslim-Israel Dialogue. Dear Sheikh, glad to have you here.
Greetings. Salam and assalamu alaikum. My name is Sheikh Musa Drame. I am one of the co-founders of Muslims-Israel Dialogue, an organization established to campaign for normalization between Israel and all the Muslim nations, particularly organizations such as OIC and Arab League. I am doing this short message of solidarity in conjunction with Combat Anti-Semitism movement. As a human being, I think it is very simple to say anti-Semitism is wrong, is crime, and is stupid. So I don't think it needs any further explanation than that. But on a broader level, I believe that there are two types of anti-Semitism. One is Judeo-Christian biblical anti-Semitism practiced in Europe and taught in former European colonies, which blames the Jewish people from everything that is wrong under the sun. Even if there's a hurricane, they find ways to blame the Jews. If there's a snake bite, they may find ways to blame the Jews. So that's a Judeo-Christian biblical anti-Semitism practiced for, 2,000 years. And then there's anti-Semitism stems out of Israel, Muslim world. And this is fairly new. Regardless of what the relationship between Muslims and Jews were, the anti-Semitism that we practice as Muslims now stems in the last 70 to 80 decades. That is, the state of Israel and how the Muslims perceive it. So the European anti-Semitism, I cannot help. But the Muslims, Israel anti-Semitism, that for the past 22 years has occupied my time trying to fix. My wife and I are very, very active in making sure that anti-Semitism is totally tied to anti-Islam, anti-Muslims, anti-Holy Quran. The same way we tied anti-Israel to anti-Mecca, anti-Medina, and anti-holy places in the Muslim world. But for us now to fight anti-Semitism from the Islamic perspective, we always come up with the facts. As of today, I'm speaking to you, there are 193 nations that are part of the United Nations. Among them, 57 nations that are also part of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And among them, there are 22 nations that are part of the Arab League. So these 22 nations, these are Arabic language, Arabic culture, Arabic heritage, Arabic background, Arabic pride, and Islamic religion. They are independent, they are proud, and they are thriving. For now, to join together and fight one small state where our own Holy Quran mentioned so many times in the most noblest way possible and tied to those who follow Moses and the religion that he brought. We thought that this was so anti-Islam, this is so anti-common sense that we could no longer tolerate it. And on that point, we have been fighting vigorously in the Muslim world to change the hearts and minds and bring Muslims back to the Quranic verses that really declare the tie between the state of Israel and the Jewish world. And we're doing it not in the expense of Palestinians or anybody else, but in conjunction with the Palestinian right. So I'll end with this. We are all commissioned by God to fight anti-Semitism, to fight hate, to fight bigotry, and to fight violence against any group, against any individual, because we are one human family. If we allow attack on any group, we allow attack on all groups, including our groups. And therefore, I'm encouraging all people to join the fight for anti-Semitism so that it will no longer exist or fester on. It should never ever happen, and we should end it now. Thank you, and God bless. Salam and assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Sheikh. Moving on to Pastor Dumisani Washington, our dear friend and partner, the founder and CEO of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. Hello, Pastor.
To Sasha and all of our friends at Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, this is Pastor Dumisani Washington, founder and CEO of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, wishing everyone an inaugural, amazing event, Many Voices, One Stand. I would have liked to have shot this video a little bit differently in our studio in North Carolina, but I'm actually in Poland right now, a guest of the European Jewish Association, their annual delegation to Auschwitz. Was there earlier today. A little sleep deprived, haven't got much rest, but this has been an amazing moment, and I'm taking it all in. I can rest later. What we've seen here, going to Auschwitz and Birkenau, reminds us of why what we do as non-Jewish allies to our brothers and sisters in fighting against the scourge, the global scourge of Jew hatred and Israel hatred. So let me take an opportunity to say that We are proud at the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel to stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters and stand against this hatred that is only increasing, sadly, and intensifying, especially in this post-October the 7th, 2023, this time now, like we've never seen since the Second World War, Israel and the Jewish people being attacked, especially in the Western world. This ideology that comes against the Jewish people, that comes against freedom and comes against democracy. We are seeing in the United States, for example, not just Hamas support rallies, but the burning of Israeli flags, the burning of American flags, and the waving of Palestinian and Hezbollah and ISIS flags. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a time that we haven't seen again in decades. And we have to have the courage to speak out because, as the late, great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks says, what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. So I want to say thank you to all of the other guests here of different religious faith, those who are Muslims, those who are Sikh, and the other Christian allies as well. We thank all of you as we all come together and stand in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. Whether yours is from a sectarian point of view as a religious person, or whether you're just somebody who's concerned about justice and peace, true peace that comes from people being able to live peacefully together. I had a phone call with an Israeli friend the other day, and they gave me the number of fallen IDF soldiers since October the 7th. In a war that Israel did not choose. Israel did not choose to fight Hamas in Gaza. It did not choose to fight Hezbollah in Lebanon. It has to defend its people and to defend its territory, because never again must mean something. And not on our watch, as the allies of our Jewish brothers and sisters must also mean something. So again, thank you so much to Combat Anti-Semitism for all the work that you do. Looking forward to connecting with you again really, really soon. Hopefully even being in the land of Israel a couple of times next year. But blessings, everyone. I hope to connect with everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. As always, encouraging and strengthening. And now, moving to Carrie Summers, the founder of the Nehemiah Group. Please, Carrie, share your amazing work with us.
I'm Carrie Summers from Springfield, Missouri in the United States. We have an organization that we formed many years ago called the Nehemiah Group. I've also served as the founding president of Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and have been involved with many organizations both in Israel and the United States that supports the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Some of those that we're currently involved in is the International Coalition for Israel, which is a sister organization of the European Coalition for Israel out of Helsinki, Finland, and also the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem and the U.S. branch. I serve as chairman of that. We've also had great involvement with City Serve Israel and the City Serve Foundation, which support some of the rebuilding that's going along the Gaza Strip today in Israel due to the October 7th destruction. But a couple of other things that we've been involved in that I think could be very pertinent to what we're gathering at this meeting today is that I was one of the co-founders of Passages, which is a program whereby we scholarship college kids, primarily Christian college kids, to come to Israel so they could understand the Jewish people and Israel. Since that program started just a few years ago, we have scholarshiped almost 12,000 college kids to come to Israel, and their lives are changed forever. And the other efforts that we found out is if we can bring key potential donors to different foundations and non-for-profits to Israel, and also in people involvement in the business world who want to invest in Israel. And so we've been doing that also for the last few years, and it, again, changes them forever. And so what is it they learn when they come there? Well, first of all, they learn that they learn about the biblical Israel, they learn about the historical Israel, and they also learn about modern Israel and the Jewish people. And one of the great things that we found with all, especially with the 12,000 college students that come to Israel, all of them have gone to a Shabbat dinner in Jerusalem. That's something that we have always set up. And when we surveyed those young people, we found out that's the number one thing that they enjoyed the most and remembered the most about Israel was having dinner with a Jewish family in Jerusalem. And I'm convinced now that through other research that we found out that that is really one of the ways to break down the walls between the Jewish people and Christians is for them to engage in a meal together. And as we saw in Amsterdam recently, the riots that were there and the persecution of the Jewish people coming from the soccer match, it's a reminder of 1939, 1942, when the Nazis started persecuting the Jewish people. And one wonderful writer said, that was all undergirded with hatred, but it was paved along the way with indifference. And that's one of the keys today. We found out, especially sending young people to Israel, they simply don't understand what Holocaust is. Some of them don't even understand the word. And that's not just for young people, too. We found it globally. That, in fact, research recently said 1 in 20 Europeans had no idea what the word Holocaust meant. So this is a global issue. And until we learn that we can wrap our arms around each other and band together, Jews and Christians alike, this problem will continue to foster and grow bigger. But there is a way to stop it. There's a way to counter, as we call anti-Semitism. And that is by wrapping our arms around each other, holding each other up, and understand the dignity that every person deserves to have. And also what it will do to save a nation. And if in fact we don't do that, it's maybe the attack on the Jews today, but it will transfer eventually to Christians, and it's going to eventually deteriorate and destroy a nation, as we saw that happen during the Holocaust in the 1940s. Nothing will change. So if we don't stop it now, it will have a continuous ripple effect that we will not be able to turn the tide on. So as we talk about this today and about the different conferences that are coming up, and there's many around the country, we have to keep in mind that now is the time, and indifference is not in the formula.
Thank you, Kerry, for your incredible work. And now, Arash Hamedian, member of the Democratic Iranian Opposition, political and human rights activist. So happy to have you here. Thank you.
My name is Arash Hamedian. I am a 39-year-old Iranian who is living more than 15 years in Europe. As Israel is daily attacked by the proxies of the Islamic Republic regime over Iran, like Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and others. As people of Gaza are hostages of Hamas, as people of Lebanon are hostages of Hezbollah, as people of Syria are hostages of Assad, as people of Yemen are hostages Houthi, as people of Venezuela are hostages of Maduro, who is the friend of Islamic Republic, as the people of Ukraine are under attack by Putin, who is the friend and ally of Islamic Republic, as Jews are hunted worldwide in the Western world by the proxies and sympathizers of the Islamic Republic and anti-Semitic, Jew-hating groups and ideologies. I am also hostage of the lobbies and friends of the Islamic Republic for so many years in Europe. I am a member of the Democratic Iranian Opposition, who is fighting for democracy and freedom in Iran with the leadership of Princess Reza Pahlavi, who majority of Iranian people worldwide and inside Iran want him as a democratic alternative for replacing this regime with a democracy. We are also fighting anti-Semitism and extremism, and we are defending Europe and the West against these terrorist ideologies. Since 2017, I have asked for asylum, and unfortunately for so many years, I have been run into a non-end process and blackmail and discriminations, while pro-Hamas and pro-Islamic Republic regime people quickly have all the permissions and are free to act and do violence in the West. The Islamic Republic regime and their lobbies are pressing and blocking people like me who are really against them. And their lobbies and proxies, they are not always in a face of aggressive beardy people who are shouting slogans. No, they have people also in academic, cultural, artistic, and other atmospheres in the systems. They are discriminating you, and in a way that nobody would believe you, in a way that you look like a low-level person who is not important, and they say that he's doing this to just get asylum, you know, because your fight is important. Then they send people to tell you, be quiet, stay quiet, then you are going to have your freedom, you are going to have your asylum, and everything going to be okay. Don't you learn from the last years? Stay quiet. But I don't want to stay quiet. I want to talk. They have taken all my friends from me in the university time, and in France and Greece and elsewhere. I have been crying for years under pressure that nobody can imagine it, in the farms of Brabant, Gelderland, Limburg, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Den Haag, or elsewhere in Hessen. But I want to talk, and I want to also to ask you people to talk. They accuse us to nonsense things like he is anti-Muslim, he is anti-Arab, he is anti-like this. But I have friends from all genre of people, Arab intellectuals, moderate Muslims, from Jewish and Christian backgrounds, atheists, Buddhists, and from all around the world, and they know me. The lobbies of the regime try to infiltrate to European politics and turn them that they don't pressure Islamic Republic. I remember Joseph Borrell, the head of the European Foreign Policy, said, "We have built a garden in Europe. The world is a jungle, and we don't want the jungle to invade the Europe." But is that your garden, Mr. Borrell, that the Jews are, and also pro-Israel people who are trying for existence of Israel, are under hunt and under pressure and discrimination in Europe? Is that the democracy and that you're talking about it? You didn't let the IRGC to be in the terror list of Europe. You and your circle are the biggest obstacle of this. I just want to tell you people, please, we are all hostages of Islamic Republic and their proxies and the Jew-hating ideology. We must stand united together and support each other. Only in this way we can stay free and become free from these terrorists. The Middle East will be free, the world will be free, the Europe and the West, the US will be secure again. We must stand united. Long live freedom.
Thank you for your courage. I'm happy to invite Khaled Hassan, political risk and intelligence analyst. Now you're going to hear an incredible story. Prepare to be amazed. Thank you, Khaled, for joining us.
Hi, folks. My name is Khaled Hassan. I'm a British Egyptian foreign policy and national security researcher. I've been involved in the fight against anti-Semitism and terrorism for many years. But I come from Egypt. I was born in Cairo to Muslim parents in 1990. I have seen how the virus of anti-Semitism can take over an entire society. Tens of millions of people who accept anti-Semitic tropes, who accept anti-Semitism and its most hideous forms, and not even question them. Which is why I'm talking to you today. My work in the UK, and alongside the UK government, has led to the deportation of one of the most prominent Islamist broadcasters, after he celebrated October 7th as the happiest day of his life, continued to promote anti-Semitism and support for terrorism. My work has also led to legal action against a France-based Jordanian lawyer who was leading the ICC case against Israel, its Prime Minister, and Minister of Defense. I have also been able to seek legal action and essentially have different individuals in different parts of Europe either prosecuted or held accountable for their anti-Semitism and support for terrorism. I was also one of the main contributors, one of the 10 main contributors to Trevor Searson's report on bias at the BBC, anti-Israel bias, a very blatant form of bias which has not been addressed, and there seems to be no indications that they intend to address this bias. I have one message for you. I want you to be cautiously optimistic. We are winning the war, and I believe that many people across the globe are now realizing that there is a serious threat associated with Islamism, fundamentalism, terrorism, and anti-Semitism. But I also want you to ask yourself a serious question, a very serious question, in fact. What are we doing differently after October 7th? Our approach, I believe, needs to change. We need to rely on personal experiences. There are only 15 million Jews and 2 billion Muslims who live, like I lived, in countries that are hostile to Jews, hostile to Israel, and fundamentally anti-Semitic. We need to win hearts and minds. We need to do it in creative ways. We need to find different ways, creative ways to reach out, to build personal relationships. We need to make sure that the millions, tens of millions of people who have never met a Jew, but nonetheless hate Jews, find a platform, find a medium through which they can actually engage with Jews. And these experiences need to be personal and up close. Otherwise, there won't be much hope. We need to change our approach, and we need to be able to build a world that is better for our children and everyone else's. Israel is winning the war against Hamas. Israel is winning the war against Hezbollah. Israel is winning the war against the IRGC in Iran. But you play a role. So thank you for your support, and thank you for supporting CAM. And all the best to all of you.
What a journey. Back to the USA, Pastor Alan Jackson Ministries. Welcome.
I'm Pastor Alan Jackson. I serve a congregation in Middle Tennessee, just outside of Nashville, World Outreach Church. I have served the same church for several decades, from a church plant until today. Israel and the Jewish people have been a big part of my own spiritual formation and my own leadership in the local church and beyond. I made my first trip to Israel when I was in the 6th grade. I have been back and forth consistently since then. I studied at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. My parents actually lived in Jerusalem a significant part of the time for more than 10 years, helping translate literature into Hebrew, Christian literature predominantly. So my background with the state of Israel and the Jewish people really coincides with my whole spiritual journey and spiritual formation, which makes kind of the events that have been unfolding in the last few months, really since October the 7th, it's been more than a year now, a very unsettling circumstance. You know, there was a general attitude, I think, at the end of the Second World War that we could finally put anti-Semitism behind us. In fact, that was kind of a prevailing attitude, that never again would we see that kind of hatred for the Jewish people. One of the things I've learned through my studies at the university there and just my friends in the Jewish community is how separate the communities are, how unaware we typically are of one another, and in the Christian community, how unaware we are of our own history, that the greatest persecutor of the Jewish people historically has been voices from within the Christian camp. And that goes all through history. You know, Shakespeare wrote in some very anti-Semitic language. In Spain, with the Spanish Inquisition, the 15th century, many Jews were arrested, either forced to convert to Christianity or were forced out of the country, their property confiscated. In Russia, the pogroms, you may know of Fiddler on the Roof is kind of a movie or a play that has gotten a lot of attention. It's that period, again, the Jewish people being discriminated against, hated, forced to move. And typically the energy for that came from the Christian community, from the churches and the pulpits, which made it very unsettling post-October 7th to see universities that in our nation had been celebrated as elite. I refuse to refer to them that way any longer. They're not elite universities. They're very intentional propaganda centers. And we saw the hatred for the Jewish people boiling out of those places. It is a very important time for the church to stand up and simply reflect our biblical worldview. The Scripture is very clear. Without the Jewish people, we have no story to tell. In the book of Romans, Paul says in the most emphatic language, God didn't reject the Jewish people. He said, God forbid. Without the Jewish people, we have no Scripture, we have no law, we would have no prophets, we would have no Messiah, we would have no story. We have been grafted into that tree. So we are indebted to the Jewish people, and I believe have an obligation to stand on their behalf on the global stage, and certainly to stand on their behalf inside of our churches and from our pulpits. So if that hasn't been a part of your spiritual formation, I would encourage you to begin to intentionally, purposefully, consistently pray for the peace of Jerusalem and for the inhabitants of the land of Israel and the Jewish people throughout the earth. We will stand together in this present world order ultimately to see our God worshiped. And it is an honor to stand with Israel, and I pray this adds a little momentum to your own journey.
Thank you, dear Pastor. Father Murray Watson, Canadian Catholic priest deeply involved in Catholic-Jewish relations. So good to have you here. Welcome.
My name is Murray Watson, and I'm a Catholic biblical scholar in Ontario, Canada, who has been active in Jewish-Christian dialogue for the last 25 years. Like so many, I am horrified and deeply disturbed by the resurgence of anti-Semitic words and actions that I have seen over the last 14 months here in Canada and around the world. Synagogues, Jewish schools, and other Jewish institutions attacked and vandalized, and attacked on individuals for no reason other than they were visibly Jewish. 60 years ago next year, bishops of the Catholic Church issued a groundbreaking declaration called Nostra Aetate about the Catholic Church's relationship to non-Christian religions. It said, in part, the Church, mindful of the patrimony she shares with the Jews, decries hatred, persecutions, displays of anti-Semitism directed against Jews at any time and by anyone. The fact that that statement would need to be repeated 60 years after Nostra Aetate and only 80 years after the Holocaust points to a deep social sickness that all of us have a responsibility to loudly and unconditionally reject. I stand united with my Jewish friends and colleagues and Jewish people around the world in saying an unequivocal no to hatred and violence directed against Jewish people and their places of gathering and prayer. May we all stand up against anti-Semitism so that it cannot find a home in our communities, our countries, or in our hearts.
Thank you so much for these words. Reverend Ryan Muldoon, Ecumenical and Interreligious Director at the Archdiocese of New York. Great to have you here.
Hi, my name is Father Ryan Muldoon. I serve as the Director of the Office of Ecumenical and Interreligious Dialogue for the Catholic Archdiocese of New York. I'm proud to add my voice to our one collective voice in the one fight against anti-Semitism. I want to thank the Combat Anti-Semitism movement for their leadership. We know that there's still a cloud hanging over us, as more than a year ago, we experienced that terrible Hamas terrorist attack against Israel on October 7th. Our hearts continue to break for the ensuing war, but especially for those hostages that are still held in captivity in Gaza. It's been more than a year, and we know that so many innocent people continue to be caught in the grip of that war. We mourn every life lost: Israelis, Palestinians, Lebanese, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and all others. Every human life is precious, and every life lost is a tragedy. Pope Francis often reminds us, and my bishop, Cardinal Dolan, often repeats that religion can never be used to legitimize violence. So as a Christian, and together with all people of goodwill, I want to employ that great tool that we have, prayer and praying for peace in that land that we call holy. These are days of worry for us, but the worry is not confined to the Middle East, because right here in New York, across the United States and European capitals and around the globe, we note with great anxiety the rise in anti-Semitism. I want our Jewish friends and my Jewish colleagues here in New York and around the world to know that you are not alone. I join with religious leaders from so many faith traditions to say that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism and that we'll work together to call it out and to eradicate this evil. The Catholic Church, I'm sorry to say, has a history of anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism for which we must continue to repent, but from which we must continue to learn. We must learn from the tragic fact that so many Christians and so many Catholics stood by in silence as the Holocaust, the Shoah, took place in the heart of largely Christian Europe. As we said then, and we say now, never again. Well, now is the time for us to put our actions behind those words as we stand with the Jewish community and all people of goodwill, united in one voice to be part of this one fight against anti-Semitism.
Thank you, Reverend, for your powerful message. And now, as we come to an end, I encourage you to reflect on how these messages can inspire action within your own community. Together, we can forge bonds that transcend differences, proving that when many voices come together as one, we can stand against hatred and build a future rooted in justice, in understanding, in unity. Thank you for being here and for taking this stand with us. I am Shira Granot, and it was an honor to host you here today. Thank you to the Combat Anti-Semitism movement and to everyone who was bold enough to share their voice.